Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by senior from the Dartmouth women's hockey team, CC Bowlby. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, CC, and how's everything going?
Good, good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to answer all your questions.
Well, I'm excited to have you on this gloomy day here in New England. Obviously, your team just started the second half of the season. At the time of this recording, you guys got a win against Stonehill. So I'm curious, how would you evaluate your season as of now? And do you think that win against Stonehill is a good start for the second half of the season to get things off on the right note?
Yeah, for sure. It's really nice to get a win coming back from break just because we haven't really had the first half of the season we wanted. Obviously, we're not winning games, as many games as we'd like, obviously. But I think I'm really excited for the second half because I think a lot of teams are going to underestimate us just because of our record. But I do think it's interesting because most of the games we haven't won. We were in the game, if not winning, for most of it. So I think it'll be interesting to see like how teams like consider us in the second half. And I think it will be interesting to see how we do.
Yeah, and obviously in the ECAC this year, it's such a deep conference and a lot of parity. Like I was looking at potential tournament scenarios, and based on some of the automatic bids, there's gonna be like two or three teams that are really good in the ECAC this year that won't make the tournament just because it's just the way it works. I'm curious what it's been like to play in the ECAC this year and just how the conference has gotten better since your freshman year, because it seems like so many talented players are in the conference this season, and it just continues to get better as the regular season progressed since I started watching it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because like growing up playing hockey, kind of the only like good conference really was like the WCHA. So it's really exciting just like for women's hockey in general to like have another really good division. And it's the biggest division as well. So it's really hard just in competition wise. But yeah, it's really interesting to see like the depth that we have. And especially like we're in the bottom of the ECAC, but like you win one game and you get 3 points. And so it kind of is going to be really interesting to see like how teams perform because if we win two games, we're like in the middle of the ECAC. So I think it'll be really interesting how the second half goes. And just in general, like playing teams, like the depth that each team has on their team is really, really, really hard to play against. So like you have to really like be in the game for like all 60 minutes and you can't take any like time off just in if you want to be successful. So it's really hard but also really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I was just doing research on this. It's apparently the ECAC is changing its playoff format this season. I'm curious how that's going to look. Is it more single elimination style versus series, or is it what's the change going to be like as a player? Like, what was your thoughts on all that?
Well, I've actually never been in the playoffs. So if we do make it, I think more just like it will be such a like a fun and surreal moment just because like I came into this program wanting to build it to be a winning team. And we've had a lot of change in the program in general, but I think we're going in the right direction and I'm really excited. So if we were to make it to playoffs, I think it would just be like a really good stepping stone for us as a program and just like in general, I think it would be really cool. Um, so in terms of that, I think it would just be like a surreal moment for our team in general, and I think it would be really good for us. And I think it would be really interesting to see how we would do in playoffs if we got there.
And obviously, for yourself individually, you're a senior this year. What is it like being one of the older players on the team, and what type of leadership have you tried to bring to the team? Are you more of a vocal leader or lead by example type of player?
Yeah, no, I think our team in general, since COVID did for Ivy Leagues, we didn't have a season at all. So kind of the seniors on our team are like the core group of girls that have been through a lot. Like we've had three coaches now. We went through COVID. We've had like a lot of obstacles to overcome. So I think our team, like our seniors and even juniors, are really important just in like lead by example and like being like really good role models for like the younger girls, especially like in an Ivy League school, like outside of like the rink. I think it's also really important. So I'm definitely, I would say, a lead by example type person. Like I really love playing hockey and I feel like my skills are I'm pretty confident with my skills on the ice. So I think that puts me pretty far. Like people really like to ask me questions, and like I love talking about hockey. So I think that's really something I enjoy doing. So and then obviously I think like as a core group of seniors, I think we all like want to bring this program to like leave this program better than we like came into it, and I think we've done like that already, so I'm really excited and happy about that. But yeah.
And obviously, for individually, you've improved a lot since your freshman year, both offensively, point wise, but then defensively as well. I really like your defensive game. So, talk about what you think the biggest improvement you've made to your game has been since your freshman year, and how do you go about doing that during the off season?
Yeah, no. So I'm playing center this year. I haven't really played since I guess high school. So it's definitely more of a defensive position than playing wing. So that's definitely something I've been like working on a lot this year. Just like being in the defensive zone, but also like I try to like not have to worry about the defensive zone. So I'm trying to get the puck out faster, like see the ice faster, and not really like have to be in the D zone more than like 10, 15 seconds, which I think I've been trying to do a good job of this year. So that's definitely something I've improved on this year. And then just in general, like center things like face offs, like I work on face offs with my centers after practice every day, which is we do a little competition, which is always fun. And then obviously I'm kind of a smaller player. So definitely being smaller, I think being quick in the corners is definitely something I've been working on as well. So like my speed and quickness is something I've always tried to like work on and improve on. So just like the little things.
Yeah, that's a huge adjustment though, going from wing to center because center is the only position I think, like when you're a wing, you have to be more offensively minded. When you're a defender, you have to be a little more defensively minded. But when you're center, you have to sort of be both offensively and defensively minded. So I'm curious how you switch your mindset from being offensively minded more often than trying to balance the two, I guess, because that's something that I think centers, when you talk to some of them, you really don't appreciate that aspect of their game is how you have to sort of balance the both mindsets that you have because I feel like sometimes you have to be a little more aggressive, sometimes you have to be a little more conservative, and it's sort of like depending on how the game goes is how you sort of have to play it out.
Yeah, no, it's definitely hard for me, especially because I'm a very offensive minded forward. So it's definitely something like I've made an adjustment. But I think it's more, I think I still think very offensively in the D zone, just like to get it out faster or like to try to move it up, get it out of the zone, definitely. But I think something I've worked on more is like the fundamentals in the D zone. Like we play a pretty like strict D zone, so I've been definitely like honed in on that and like focused during practice to make sure I'm like getting that down and like going over video in the locker room with the coaches is definitely something that was really important to me, especially in the beginning of the year. Um, but yeah, I think like being a center now, I think it's we've had the same four centers all year, and I think we've kind of like work together to like improve each other and like hold each other accountable, which I really like.
Did you knew you were going to be a center heading into this year? Or is that something that sort of just happened as the season progressed?
Yeah, no, so I didn't. I've always like kind of mentioned it to the coaches like last year. But being a younger player, like it's usually like a bigger role to fill. So I definitely mentioned at the beginning of the year, and they were all in for it. So it was definitely something I wanted to do. But it happened in the early season, and it was a big adjustment, but it was something I was really excited to do. So
How do you work on those face-off drills? Because I feel like you obviously I don't want to give away your strategy, so I won't ask you how that works. But like, what's like I guess your mindset heading into face-offs, and how do you think you've improved on that? I think is it just sort of like just practicing on it until you get it right, or is it like any strategy you have to learn in order to be better at face-off draws?
It was for me, I usually like didn't really think anything of it when I would go into face-offs, but our coach, he kind of gives us a lot of tips like based off the refs. There's a difference between ECAC refs and like new HA refs and Hockey East refs. So it's definitely something to play with. But definitely like each of our centers does face offs differently, so adapting to like what the center does, because you can have the way you do a face off, but if the center starts knowing what you're doing, then they'll change how they do it. So it's kind of like really important to be able to adapt during a game, and then knowing like what each of their centers do. So like when we're doing a game, like I'll go up to my center and be like, oh, the girl with the yellow skates, she likes to do this or something like that, just to like kind of so we know what each of their centers do, so it's easier to win faceoffs. But it's kind of crazy. Our last I think 3 or 4 games we've had over 60% like faceoff wins. So I think that's also really cool.
I'd love to know the difference between an ECAC ref versus a NUHA ref on how they drop pucks. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. So ECAC refs, being a short person, ECAC refs drop it like way higher, so I have to lift up my head more than the Nuha refs in the Stonehill game actually, where they were way like get way down lower and they drop it, so it's easier for me to see the puck. And then kind of just based off of like how tall a ref is, their stance at the face off and things like that.
Do you know what the who the refs are going to be heading into a game? And I'm curious if you like watch video on like the players and stuff like that. Like, is it something like is it like a lot of strategy heading into the game, or is it sort of like you make those in-game adjustments as the game progresses?
It's usually in-game adjustments, especially like I guess going into the second half, since we're going to be starting to play teams a second time, I think it will be more of like, oh, like we know a little more about them. But yeah, it's definitely an in-game adjustment because even for me, like I adjust during a game, so it's definitely something you have to like pay attention to, and depending like what face-off circle you're at too, as well is like a big um thing that plays into that as well.
And one question I do want to ask about your team is you guys have been much better on the road than at home. I'm curious, how do you improve your home record? And what's the strategy heading into road games? Like, why do you think you've been more successful on the road versus at home? Because I found that really interesting as well as all your wins this year have come on the road.
Yeah, no, it is really interesting because we do have a very, very big fan base like here in Hanover. It's awesome. Like our like the amount of like youth hockey players that are supporting us here is like crazy. And yeah, it's tough that we haven't gotten them a win yet, but we're really excited for the second half just in general. Um we have we like we had a lot of our home games at the beginning of the year, like our ECAC opponents. So I think that was hard just like going into the year like as an Ivy League, you start later than if you're not. So that also plays into that too. So I think we've developed a lot as a team and now. So I think it's going to be really interesting for our home games. But also just away games, I think being away and like kind of the only thing you're focusing on is hockey and you're kind of like in that mindset. I think it's really like helpful and easy to be like ready for the game. And sometimes for home games, you could be distracted with like school and such like that. So definitely just being on the road, you're kind of just like hockey, hockey, hockey. So it's easy to focus and like get into those games.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, what's your favorite road rink to play in your career so far?
So I guess just like because I like older school rinks, I really like the Harvard rink. And then like newer rinks, I really, really like Quinnipiac's rink. So yeah, my cousin actually plays there, so it'll be pretty cool to see her this coming weekend because we play them. So
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's a cool rink. I think they hosted a Frozen Four a few years back, and I hope they get the chance to do that again because I like the aesthetics. I've never been there before, but it just looks cool to watch.
yeah, they also have like nice like away locker rooms. Some teams like they're like even our like away locker room isn't necessarily like the nicest thing to stay in. So it's nice that they have like brand new locker rooms.
What's your least favorite visiting locker room? Like, who has the worst?
Ooh, I don't know. Um,
I don't
I
think Merrimack's seemed that good. That seems like an older rink.
yeah. Yeah, I think it kind of depends on like how new or old the rink is, just depending on like where they have their locker rooms.
And obviously, you get to play in a really cool rink. I like the rink in Dartmouth. It's obviously very green. But talk about what it's like playing in that barn because it's sort of a good mixture of old school and new school.
Yeah, I love our rink. Our rink guys like squad also keeps our rink like our ice is always perfect. They're doing such a great job keeping it clean and nice for us. Um, yeah, it's I love our rink. It's very old school. I think it used to be like a hangar for airplanes or something like that, which I find really cool. But it also yeah is new. I kind of like the old school like jumbotron. It's like doesn't it's just like kind of a scoreboard, which I find is interesting. Some people don't like it, but I do. Um, and then yeah, just in general, I think it's a pretty cool rink. It's big. The men's team like fills it up, and it's really cool when that happens. So yeah.
Yeah, no, your media team does a good job of like broadcasting it well because there's some schools that like you don't really get to see how cool the rink is when you watch it through a screen, but Dartmouth does a good job with that. So that's why I really like it as a lot, even though I've never been there before.
Yeah, no, they're sadly I'm a senior, so I won't be here, but they're doing some renovations this spring and summer, so I think it'll be even cooler for the coming seasons. So that will be good.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to see those or see them on the screen next season. But I want to transition now and talk about the beginning of your hockey career and kind of work all the way up to where you are today with Dartmouth. So, just doing some research about yourself. It says that you're from Edina, Minnesota. So, talk about growing up there and how did you start playing hockey?
Yeah, no. So I love Edina. I have so many great relationships with like all my hockey teammates and friends from Edina. I started playing hockey, like started skating, I guess, when I was like around 2 years old. I mean, my dad played, my all my siblings played. So it was kind of like a college or a family hockey thing. So like everyone in our family would play. So I kind of started playing then. I started playing girls hockey in U12s for Edina. I played choice league for a little bit with the boys, which I always thought was fun. But yeah, I started playing in U12s and all the way up to high school, obviously. I got to play with both of my sisters, which is really cool. I don't think a lot of people get to do that. I also got to win two state tournaments with, or three, I guess, but one with each of my sisters, which was also really cool. So I think I had a great like hockey school in town. So that was really nice. And then coming to Hanover, obviously, it transitions and translates very similar to Edina. Like the town loves hockey. Everyone is like very supportive. There's youth hockey girls that like look up to you and idolize you. And it's really cool to like be a part of something like that just because like women's hockey is growing so much. And like when I was younger, there was only a few girls to look up to. And now there's like so many and it's like a really cool thing.
The green jerseys as well. I didn't know which one was high school and which one was college. Just looking at photos of yourself playing.
Yeah. I love green. I love the Dartmouth green. I think I like it a little more than Edina just because it's a little darker. But yeah, it does seem I like green the best.
Who was your favorite player growing up? Was it a women's player on the national team or was it someone in the NHL?
It was actually someone in the NHL. Pavel Dasuk. He was my favorite player growing up. I loved how cool he was. I would stick handle in my garage all the time because I always wanted to be him. I wanted to play in the NHL. I was going to be the first girl. It was always one of my dreams. But yeah, I loved watching him. My family number is 13 too, so I found that pretty interesting too. But I always thought he was really cool and skilled. His stick skills were, or still, I guess he's still playing, are unreal. So
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is that why you wear the number 13 because of him?
So it's funny, it's a family number. Everyone calls it unlucky, but for our family we call it lucky. So we kind of just all started wearing it. And I still do.
That's awesome. And I feel like you're underestimating how good your family is at hockey because you say you grew up in a hockey family, and that's just putting it mildly. Your older sister played with Wisconsin, your older brother played at Harvard, and your little sister Lucy also had a very good career with Edina in high school. So talk about what it was like growing up in a hockey family, and do you have any funny stories with your siblings growing up just playing?
Yeah, no, it was awesome to be able to have that. I had an older brother to look up for too, but not only that, I had an older sister. Like Grace is pretty much the reason why I'm still playing hockey. She was a great role model, and she was unreal at hockey. My brother's still playing actually. He's playing for the Charlotte Checkers, which was also really cool. He he's had a hard like career. Like he's worked so hard to be where he is, and I find that so cool as well. Like just to look up to someone who didn't really get a lot of recognition until his like later days because he's worked so hard. But yeah, our family's very competitive. So we've always like we have a bunch of funny stories just in general of going to hockey in the mornings or playing like pond and it turns into something way too competitive and our parents have to stop us. But yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't get, but like just having like three people around you just constantly like having you work hard and wanting to be better every day is really a big thing, especially when those days you don't want to do anything. Your sister's there to make you feel bad if you don't go play hockey with her or something like that. So it's nice. And even in Minnesota, like in the winters, it's always nice to get to play pond and all those little things. So
And for yourself, being the middle child, is it weird dynamic having an older sister to look up to, but then having a younger sister to sort of teach?
yeah, no, it was. When I played with my older sister, like in high school, we won the first state championship ever for Edina girls hockey, which was something crazy. But playing with her was such a, like a surreal thing. Like she is such a good hockey player. I mean, I guess she's not playing anymore, but she was such a good hockey player and she loved it so much. And she was a great leader for like our team and me especially. And then like translating that into getting to play with my younger sister is definitely hard. It's hard to be a role model. I would say like you definitely have to develop, and like being a younger role model is also hard just because you're kind of immature when you're young. So it's definitely like something that pushes you to like mature faster and be like that person for your younger sister. But I think I had a great high school career and it was awesome to get to play with those two girls.
Is it weird now having your sister not play anymore? Like, what do you guys talk about now since she's not playing anymore? And how's she doing now? I haven't. It's weird not seeing her with Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, she's doing great. She's just working a job. She loves it. But yeah, I always talk to her just about like little things too. She's very like educated in hockey. She's helping out with like a youth team in Minnesota as well. So she's kind of still staying in it a little bit. But I think it's like I try. Lucy, my younger sister, also doesn't play, so it's kind of just me and the girls in the family. But I still talk to her about it all the time. She watches my games. She loves it. She's gonna come out here for my senior weekend. So she's still, I think she's a little sad for her, but I think she had a great career and I don't think she regrets anything that happened. So
At least your older brother plays, so at least you're not the only one in the family that's
yeah.
not playing hockey. Now, obviously, doing research on yourself, it said that before college you played at your high school with Edina. I'm curious, talk about your experience there and what's like the best memory you have from your high school hockey days.
Yeah, Edina was really cool to play for. We were like we'd always been a good team, but we never had a state championship, which is like the ultimate goal you have in high school. In Minnesota, like it's crazy. Like now being out east and talking to all the girls on my team and how they grew up playing hockey, it's so different. And they're like, "You played for your high school? Like that's so weird." But yeah, I got to play for my high school, and then I got to win 3 state championships, which was something I never thought I would do, which is really cool. I played with great players, obviously. Some like every year we'd have a couple D1 commits. They still do as well. So it's just a really cool program. Obviously, not a lot of Minnesota teams like Edina, which is funny. But yeah, it was all just really cool. I think my favorite moment probably, I guess it would be all three, but just winning all three of those state championships and being in the XL Energy Center and like being on TV, like it's just such a thing that like so many people don't get to like experience. And like then like just like being in the tournament, getting all your names like announced, being videoed, like being getting to stay in the locker rooms there are so cool. So it's definitely something like you can't like describe really, and like you have to like be a part of it. But I'm really glad I was, for sure.
Yeah, I find that super cool about Minnesota because I'm from the East Coast as well. And it's basically nearly impossible to play for your public high school and make it to the Division 1 level. You usually have to go out to a prep school or a junior team. So I'm curious, like that's such a cool atmosphere to be a part of. So talk about what it's like being in the Minnesota high school hockey scene and obviously being removed from it now. Does it give you more appreciation of it? Talking to some of your other teammates that aren't from Minnesota, just how different it is because I feel like it's hard to understand, like you said, if you're not into it. And it's something that I'm still trying to learn today as well. Like, why is it so big? High school hockey is so big in Minnesota.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And the amount it's grown to now, like the team, like there used to only be a couple good teams and it'd be like the same team winning every year. And now like it's very spread out. Like I think even Edina's like pretty like not like the best team. So I think it's really cool to see like all these other teams getting better, and like just having that depth in every program is a really cool thing to see. I just think it's so hard to describe, but yeah, I guess it would just be like you get to try out for your high school team. We have like a varsity and a JV team, and same with the boys. And then like every kind of team, and you take school buses to each of the games. Like you play, I want to say like 30 games a season. So but yeah, you just get to practice. Our rink, Braemar rink is also a pretty cool like rink to be growing up. It's very similar to Dartmouth, kind of. It's all green. But yeah, I was very blessed. We got brand new locker rooms like the year before I went to, and the locker rooms are so cool. We have like a great fan base like for the school too. Like we would go to the state tournament, like our school would let like take buses from the school to the rink so they could watch us, which is also really cool. And then like during the off season, you get to play with like the best of all the Minnesota teams. So it's like all the girls that are going to like D1 level. So you're all together as well. And you're just as good as any like kind of prep school team you like would be. So it's just really cool to see like how many like I guess like so many Minnesota families are hockey families just like mine. And so it's just really cool to see and be a part of that. Yeah.
Why does everyone hate Edina?
I guess I couldn't really speak because I'm from Edina, so I guess I'm a little biased, but I think it's just because we're pretty good at like almost every sport. Um,
That's a
so
reasonable. I respect that
yeah,
because I'm a Patriots fan and everyone hates the Patriots because they won all the time. So I respect that. So even
yeah.
though I'm not from Minnesota, I'm a honorary Edina hockey fan. That's gonna be my team.
Okay, sounds good.
But I'm curious also about the like how Edina helped prepare you for college hockey because I was doing research on the team that you played for, and there was one year where you had Mallory Uline, who plays for Penn State, Hannah Chorsky, who plays for Harvard, Annie Keel, who plays for Princeton, and that's just to name a few players who are on the same roster. So what's it like playing with those players, and how does it help prepare you for college hockey? Because I feel like getting to play with D1 players just on the same team in practice must really help make the transition easier from high school to college.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And even like growing up, I got to watch like Taylor Williamson and those girls. So like to be able to have role models like doing the same thing you want to do is awesome. My obviously my older sister, but then playing like being a part of it, like even my freshman year, I got to play with Anna Klein as well and Emily Oden. So like I played with great hockey players. So that's like something I've like definitely like it's developed me so much as a player. Just like yeah, day in and day out of practices and just like on and off the ice, like they're such great people. So it's also that, and then like developing friendships with them and seeing where they go is also such a cool thing to see. But yeah, I think it's definitely like always really nice to be playing with like great girls and like having chemistry with them and like doing really well. And I think it's also great for our program and then also just like develop like such great hockey players are those role models for the girls on the team as well that like look up to you and even though they may not be as good as you and aren't going to the D1 level, they love hockey every day and they come and they work just as hard as you. So I think it's just as such a great dynamic to have such great hockey players as well as hard workers on a team.
Do you still talk to some of those players today? I know you play against Hannah and Annie, but like, do you still talk to like players like Mallory Uline that you don't play against in college?
Yeah, no, Mallory is like one of my best friends. We stay in touch. We see each other very often. I keep track of her. I watch her games all the time. She's such a great hockey player, and she is so fun to watch. So yeah, I still not so much the older girls, but I do still keep like kind of watch and see what they're doing. So yeah.
Is it cool getting to play against one of your former teammates in college? Is
Yeah.
it weird but cool? I feel like.
Yeah, it's always fun. We always joke around. I played on a summer team as well with like Izzy Daniel and Lily Delianidis and like Sam Burke. Like there's a bunch of girls in the Ivy League that I play against. So it's always fun to joke around with them and play them. I always love seeing them and seeing where they're at and how they're doing. So yeah, it's always fun to see a familiar face on the ice.
Now, talk about your recruitment process to Dartmouth. What made you want to go to the East Coast, and what made Dartmouth the school for you versus other ones you might have looked at?
Yeah, I know the recruitment process is much different now. But back when I was being recruited, we had a different coach. So the person, like the main, so Schuler was the head coach, but Chris Cobb was the assistant, who was kind of communicating with me through Dartmouth, and I loved him. He's a great guy. I actually shot with him. He has a goalie camp. Like I was helping out with him this summer. Like I love working with him. He's such a great guy and he loves what he does. But yeah, so I committed. They say I was late for my grade. I guess I committed before my junior year. And I really didn't know what I wanted. It's crazy how some girls committed before that because I was like still so like I need to pass my classes in high school. Um, but I knew I wanted to be on the East Coast. My brother was playing. He was going to be playing for Harvard, so I always thought that was really cool. And I have some family that lives in Boston. So I kind of wanted to get kind of far away. My sister played in the WCHA and I always played with her and it was always nice to have a role model, but I kind of wanted to do something different. So I definitely like the East Coast and Chris Cobb, he was just a great guy and I love Dartmouth through his eyes. Like he was such a great person to describe Dartmouth as a school and it was everything but more when I got here. So that was awesome. So I think I had like some other opportunities, but I think Dartmouth was kind of just like the way they recruited me. They loved me as a hockey player. So it was definitely something I was like really like I was respected at like as a hockey player and I loved that. So it was definitely a reason why I chose the school. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I know we haven't had the greatest season since I've been here, but just also as a school in general is amazing. I've met so many great people. Here it's like such a high competitive level for hockey and school and pretty much anything you do. It always keeps you on your toes. So that's always nice. It sets you up to be very successful. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you, how do you balance academics and hockey? Because it's hard to balance academics for myself, but especially in Ivy League school, the workload's much tougher. I'm curious how you how you go about balancing both the aspects of your life at school, but also you feel like you also have to balance the student life part as well, because I feel like you just don't want to be like studying and playing hockey. I feel like that gets like that's not good mentally, I feel like at times.
Yeah, no, it's definitely really hard. We are on a quarter system as well here, so the terms go by like super fast. So you're always constantly doing work. But here at Dartmouth, it's interesting. The library is a very social space. Not only like you study, but you can also like have a social time with your friends as well. Like there's different spots to study. There's like quiet areas and then not so quiet areas, and they have like a cafe where you can get Starbucks in the library. So it's very prone to studying and being successful, which is nice. And then there's so many different like clubs and opportunities outside of hockey that you can be a part of as well. So that's always nice. I've met like so many other like sports players, like especially women, like it's nice. And then also like player like non like sports players as well. Like I've developed great relationships. I'm a biology major, so I have like a couple like friends in like STEM classes, which is always nice to have familiar faces in classes. The classes are very small, so you have a very good developing relationship with your professor, which is always really nice. You can ask questions, um, and get answers and like build a really cool relationship with like a very educated person. So that's always great too. But yeah, it's definitely hard to do, especially like now our term is starting tomorrow actually, and we're missing the first couple days of class. So it's always hard in the middle of the season to miss classes and catch up on that. So, but being a senior, like I've kind of found some like tricks and stuff to stay on top of things and such.
Dang, I don't know if I could do that, like have school start tomorrow because I'm still in winter break for another couple of weeks. So I don't, that's tough. I don't know if I can do that, but that's why those people that go to Ivy League schools, like it's like a different game, I guess.
Yeah, we like since we've been on break since Thanksgiving, so we kind of have.
Oh, okay. All right.
But yeah, no, it's I still am not ready to go back. But yeah,
I understand. All right. So that's so for at least for my school, it's like December 15th, like the last day of finals. And then like you're on break until like middle of January. And then basically the semester ends like in May.
yeah, ours is like a little different. We have 10-week quarters, so we do Thanksgiving, and then our winter quarter goes to spring break, and then we end in like early June, so we go pretty late too.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's definitely, I've never heard, is that what all Ivy League schools do or just Dartmouth?
No, it's actually only Dartmouth, and then there's some California schools that do it. They haven't changed it. It's pretty hard to change because they have like so many things to do. So I like it
Yeah.
and don't like it at the same time.
Now, getting back to on the ice, I'm curious what was like the biggest adjustment you had to make in hockey? Was it the speed of the game, physicality, just the decision making? Like, what stood out to you the most, and how did you adjust to it?
Um, I think it was like everything. Just like I'm also like as I said before, I'm kind of small, short. So definitely like having to be stronger on your skates. Everything has to be made faster and quicker. You have to do everything way faster than you did in high school. You Each team is going to know what, like in high school teams didn't like scout you and watch video on your team, so like everyone knows like what you're going to do on the power play and all that, so you have to develop in like throughout the season and then like adjust in games. So I think it's like a combination of everything, and it's hard kind of until you get into that first game to kind of like understand the difference really.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about the second half of the season, what are your team's goals and expectations? I assume it's probably to make the playoffs, but is there any other goals that your team has that you want to accomplish for the rest of this year?
Yeah. Well, we are like very good first period team, and our second period kind of we noticed that it was kind of lagging. We'd get scored on too many times, so we definitely started to focus on each period at a time and being there for all 20 minutes of each period. So we kind of take it like one step at a time, and our coaches always like to say when we're on the road, like this is a business trip, like we came here to play hockey and we came here to win. So focusing on that and like our goals like throughout each shift you have is really important, and like the little things we like really stress, like dumping it in, getting it deep, moving the puck faster, being positive on the bench, like cheering your teammates on, just like all the little things that always like carry a team just a little bit more. And I think it would give us those wins in our like 1 point losses. So
So now we're in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I get to know you and your team a little bit better off the ice. So first one is obviously you're coming from Minnesota to the East Coast. What's the biggest difference between the East Coast and the Midwest?
It's actually way warmer here.
Oh,
When
really?
I was over at in Minnesota for break, it was negative 15, 10, and I got here and it was like 30. It's been like 45 here in Hanover. So it's way nicer, but it's also way like bipolar. The seasons like it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
raining today and then tomorrow will probably be a snowstorm. So that's definitely adjustment, just like season wise. And but I think just like being in Hanover, like and having such a great like fan base here, I think I didn't even really need to adjust to that because we had such a great one in Minnesota. So it's really nice to have those people surrounding you and cheering you on. It's always nice.
Yeah, I feel like in Minnesota it's like super colder, but at least here the wind is worse.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that about the East Coast is just the wind. It bothers me so much. That's one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yes.
Getting back to my next non-hockey question, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, my biggest pet peeve. Um, my friends are always late when it comes, like not anything like important, but just like little things like dinner reservations or like when you have a time to like pick them up and they're not ready. So it's like I'm always very like on time, if not like 10 minute ready, like 10 minutes before I have to do anything. So I always get a little annoyed when people are just a little bit late.
Yeah, my thing is like driving is like sometimes it takes a while because you get stuck in traffic. So that's why that's I usually need to time that out better. So usually if I'm running late, it's because I didn't time out the commute as good as I should have.
Yeah, I time out everything I do. So
Now, what music do you like to listen to?
oh, this is a hard question because my top listener of the year is Coldplay. I love Coldplay. I went to their concert like 3 years ago and it was crazy. Like when I'm walking to any class or like anywhere I'm going, I always just turn on like Coldplay Essentials. But before hockey games, I kind of have a playlist, like more like EDM music. And then we have like a mix we play before the game. So definitely a change of before like hockey games. I like to listen to more upbeat music, like also like old time music, like Rihanna and her like older music, or like Britney Spears. I always like.
Yeah. I feel like Coldplay gets too much hate than for some reason. I don't know why, because I feel like a lot of people like them, but then there's
Yeah.
like always those people that don't. I don't get that.
Yeah, it's more on like the calmer, sadder side of music, which I always like. So I guess maybe that's why people don't like it as much. But
I don't know. There's this song called "A Sky Full of Stars," and that's a pretty uplifting song.
yeah, it is. I agree.
I saw the concert videos of when they play that. It looks pretty cool. I don't know if you got the chance to see that live when you saw them.
Yeah, they gave us all like individual bracelets, and then they controlled it, and so the lights would change, and so like the whole
Oh,
stadium
that's
was
cool.
changing. Yeah, it was really cool.
Now, next non-hockey question is, what is your most embarrassing hockey moment?
That's fun. That's interesting. I was thinking about this, and so I think I was probably like 6 or 7, and I was playing with boys. And it was funny. The boys were always scared of me. I was kind of like a crazy child. And I got my first ever penalty, and I refused to go in the penalty box. I was like screaming, crying on the ice. And my dad was at the game, and he had to come out of the stands and get on the ice and drag me into the penalty box because I was kicking and screaming at the ref who was like trying to pull me into the box. So my parents always love to share that story with like family. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm embarrassed of, but I also find it pretty funny.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. As long as you're not doing it like in college, which would be
Yeah.
that would be actually very embarrassing.
Yes, definitely.
Now, who is the funniest teammate you have at Dartmouth?
Hmm. Um, I would probably have to say so there's two really funny girls on our team. One's like more quiet. So when she does say something funny, it's always cracks everyone up. And that's Sophie Robinson. She played in at Brainerd in Minnesota actually. And then the other one's she's louder and she loves making jokes, which always is they're always hilarious. And that's Abby Grexton. She's from Canada. But yeah, I think everyone there's always like some rogue funny comments always made around the locker room, which is always funny. But yeah.
Which teammate is the worst at responding to their phone?
Mm. Um, Probably Sophie Robinson.
And then I saw that Dartmouth does like the pregame outfits before each game. And to be honest, CC, I think you have the best style on the team. But besides yourself, who has the best style on Dartmouth women's hockey?
I think for pregame style, I would go with Meredith Jensen. She also played in Minnesota. But I would say hockey style, I would go with Laura Floco. We call her Flo. She wears her hair down, and she's the only girl I ever would think is cool to wear her hair down. So
That's awesome. And then if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
um, that's a really hard question because I I have like a lot of people I would want to have lunch with, but I think I'd want to have lunch with hockey player. I would probably say Pavel Dasuk, and I would just like ask him all the hockey questions in the world. Non-hockey player, I would probably have to go. This is kind of cliche, but Justin Bieber. I have a lot of questions for him.
Were you a big Justin Bieber fan growing up?
Yeah, I love Justin Bieber growing up, and I always thought him and Selena Gomez were meant to be. So, but yeah,
No, I listen to some of his old time music, definitely not with people around because it's a little embarrassing for me. But like, I do love the one time. Like, I hated that song growing up, but now listening to it, I'm like, this
yeah,
was a good song. I just didn't want to admit it when I was a kid.
yeah. I think that's a lot of people. I always listen to him before games because I think it's funny to watch to listen to.
Yeah, no, I think, do you think, I don't know if your team has a victory song, but do you think Eeny Meeny by him would be a good one for your team to have? Because I would love to see that video.
That would be funny. We do have a win song. It's actually by Queen. I have to find it. Don't Stop Me Now.
Hmm.
So we haven't played as much as we like, so we're hoping to play it as a bunch in the second half. But it's a good song. Um,
And then last non-hockey question is, what is the most interesting thing you've seen or read this week?
um, I can't pinpoint exactly what it said, but this morning, so my brother got me into reading the Daily Stoic. So it's each day, it's like a quote from like a Stoic long ago. And then it kind of is like a description of what it means, and it's like very relevant to each day, which I find really interesting. Like you're having a really bad day and you read it and it's exactly like what you needed to read. So it's like kind of just like this passage each day. It's like less than a page long, so it's really easy to read in the morning. So I got into reading that. Need to read it more often. I kind of forget sometimes, but yeah, it's definitely something I would think anyone, if they read it, would be interesting for them.
Yeah, I think for me, just like weather, I know this is kind of boring, but like it's interesting to see like how weather gets formed and like different that I thought that was cool. And then hockey, I read a story about Jason Robertson. He's a player for the Dallas Stars about like how he like grew up, and I thought that was pretty interesting because he was like born in California, then went to Michigan and then played juniors. And I don't know, it's just a pretty interesting story. Now he's obviously doing very well for himself in the NHL.
Yeah, that's always cool. I I follow like NHL on Instagram and Twitter, and I always love reading like updates on the NHL since I don't keep up with it like all that often.
Now, getting back to some hockey questions now. First one is for all the younger people that are listening to this pod, what advice would you give them on what it takes to get to the level to where you are today?
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of like little things, obviously, but I think like the number one thing is like to never give up, and like it seems like very cliche and like people say it all the time, but I think it's like a huge thing, especially like being a younger player. Like there's those days that you don't want to go play hockey and you throw a tantrum to your parents and you're like, I don't want to go. And just like sometimes you're getting frustrated, like you're not performing as well, or you're not getting like looks from colleges when you're all your friends are, or something like that. Because growing up, I wouldn't say I was as much as the people around me. So I think it's something to really like focus like every day, just to do the little things, like always do things some people won't do, or like won't like, just to put yourself above like people each day, I think is really important. And I think don't lose sight of like why you love the game. I think some people sometimes do like lose sight of like, you're playing like me, I'm playing at a D1 level, and sometimes I lose sight of like how cool and surreal that is for people that like don't get there. So I think just like every day, like you love the sport and this is why you're still playing, like, and it will get you to where you want to go.
And what should be done to help grow women's hockey, in your opinion?
I think just like in general support, and I think regardless of like how like I know a lot of people feel about women's hockey, like it's just as important as men's hockey, and like maybe we don't have as much support as the men do, but I think in order to grow and get that support, like people have to start supporting us and start realizing that it is growing and it's going to be huge one day. So I just think supporting like people that you can, like if you're like a dad with daughters, supporting their like them going to hockey every day, or like your friends playing hockey, like just supporting like the little things like each day, I guess.
Now, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, former teammates, family members, friends, or if you want to say anything, the floor is all yours.
Um, yeah, I guess just like in general, like I'm always thankful for my family that I grew up with, my dad and mom included, driving me to all of my hockey, coming support me out here. My grandparents are coming out here soon. My cousin is and aunt and uncle are always very supportive. So just yeah, thanks to my family really, for getting me here and supporting me and watching me.
Well, thank you so much, CC, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time. It means a lot to myself. Good luck for the rest of the season. I know you're going to do great, and I can't wait to see all the big things that you accomplish. And also, best of luck for your semester starting tomorrow. That's weird for me saying that this early in January, but I understand you guys do the little things a little bit differently at Dartmouth. But thanks again, though, for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Now, one question I want to ask you, and I'll just pause the interview, is just what